Hey, it's Patrick, and today I'm going to show you how to install a Kenwood amp and 6.5-inch speakers in your Milwaukee 8 powered Road Glide. Now I know what you're thinking, if I put that amp in there, I have to go to the dealer, they have to flash it so everything will work right. Completely not necessary with the Kenwood amp. You can do this in your garage, no flash needed. Now you can do this in your garage with hand tools, which we will link in the description below. And you also may notice that we have no outer fairing and no gas tank on this. We have 2 videos, which will also link down below, that walk you through that process if you need help getting to this point. Now, I highly recommend you put something on your front fender so you don't drop any tools or hardware on it. The next thing we're gonna need to do is take out our headlight. So let's get to spinning wrenches. To get our headlight out, we're gonna have to take these 2 little trim pieces off. We're going to need a T25, there's a screw at the top and a screw at the bottom. For the headlight, we're going to need a T30 for our top 2 screws and a 3/16 Allen for our bottom 2 screws. Headlight will come loose and we'll be able to unplug it and get it out of the way. So we need to make sure we have the correct bracket for our Road Glide. That's this kind of S-shaped one here. The next thing we need to make sure of is that our amp is orientated correctly on the bracket. And for our purposes, we want that power wire going off that way, meaning you can read Kenwood. It'll be sitting on that little shelf and we'll be able to read Kenwood right side up. And then when you have it, just press it on to the bracket. The next thing we need to do is locate the harness for the power and ground. It's pretty easy, it's marked on there, and it's also the thickest wires of the bunch. Now we're gonna take this over to the bike, and we're gonna route it through the fairing back towards the battery. 2 ends to our power harness. We wanna take the 2 eyelets with the fuse. We wanna feed it through the orifice in the back of the fairing. We wanna make sure we angle it to the brake side of the bike. We want it to come out on the brake side of the frame, and basically there's a hole right inside of the fairing stay here. We're gonna go in there and directly to the left and drop down next to the frame, but over the top of our trim piece here. So don't try to feed it along with the main harness. It's gonna get hung up there. The easiest way to do that is to go in here and go to that hole directly to the left and then down the frame. Then we're gonna take it all the way back to the vicinity of the battery. And we are running these under our tank. Kenwood says you can run these over the tank and under the dash. I do not recommend that because if you ever have to pull your gas tank off, you can pull this power harness out of there. Won't be a fun time. Take the time to put these under the tank. I also like to leave the zip ties fairly loose until we're very, very done with the install and then tighten them up so you don't short yourself on wire. So now we have to get our amp ready to install. We need to plug a few things in before we put it in the bike, otherwise we won't be able to access them. We're gonna take our input cable with the white plug it into the corresponding white plug on the amp. We're gonna take our front output cable and plug it in to the corresponding plug on the other side of the amp. And the last thing we have to do is adjust our gain. Little flat blade screwdriver here. I like to set mine maybe 3/4 or 7/8 from max. After we get those plugged in, we'll go over to the bike, we'll install it inside the fairing. So we need to mount our amp up inside the fairing. I like to unplug this just to give myself a little more room. And we're gonna take the 2 top bolts out of the fairing. Ours are 1/2 inch. I'm gonna pull those 2 1/2 inch bolts out. We're gonna slide the amp and bracket in there so it lays nice and flat. The amp side will be face down against the fairing. And we'll put our 2 bolts back in and then re-plug in our wiring harness. I'm gonna route these wires up through this hole in this fairing to give us a little more room. It's just that easy. Just that easy. So now we're going to plug in our speakers. Now, the instructions from Kenwood are a little wordy and can be a little bit confusing, so we're gonna try to keep this as simple as possible. We're gonna start over here on the brake side, where's all these pink wires. We're going to plug the blue and black into the factory plug, and it can only go in one side, so you can't really mess that up. We're gonna plug it into the speaker side. Like what I said, it can only plug into one side. Okay, now we have the other half of our pink and black plug left. Off of our amp, we have a green and black plug. Again, these can only go in one way. We're gonna plug the leftover pink plug into our green and black plug. That side is done. Now we're gonna move to the other side. We have more pink wires here. We're gonna unplug that plug. Off of our amp, we have a brown and black. That is gonna go to the speaker side, the factory plug. Coming off our amp, we have a yellow and black plug. It's gonna go to the leftover half of that speaker. Again, you can only plug these in one way. And from there, we're done. So while we're cleaning all these wires up, the last thing we need to plug in is our power supply. We'll plug that in and we'll clean up our wire mess. Let me grab that headlight, just test fit it to see if we need to move anything else. So we're gonna put our headlight in, make sure all of our mounts are open. I'm gonna take our T40 Torx and put our top two screws in so we have it hanging there. And I'll take our two 3/16 Allen and tighten them up. Don't forget to plug the headlight in. So the next thing we need to do are put on our two little trim pieces with our T25 Torx. Oh, come on, there we go. Now we can move on to installing our speakers. Now I'm gonna take our T25, I'm gonna pull out our 4 screws in our speaker. We'll get that nice and loose so we can unplug it. Now we need to unplug these speaker wires from our speaker. We're gonna plug in our new speaker. There are 2 terminals here. One of them is wider than the other one. The black connector goes to the thicker terminal and the white one goes to the thinner terminal. So now we have this plugged in. We're gonna rotate these around to the bottom. We're gonna reuse our screws that we're holding our factory speaker in to install this speaker. Now we're gonna move around to the other side of the bike and do the exact same thing. Well, you can tell the difference in these speakers. These stock speakers just feel like flyweight junk. On like the magnet size alone, this 300 watt Kenwood is just a gorilla compared to this little wafery thing here. We need to head down and access our battery so we can hook up our power cables. We're going to need a T40 Torx and a Phillips screwdriver. So now we're gonna take our T40, we're gonna take our 2 screws out of our ECM plate. Now there's a little metal tab that's holding this down. You just need to push forward, push on the wiring harness and tip forward, that'll come loose. We can lay that out of the way, get to our battery, take our Phillips screwdriver, hook up our positive and our negative, and reinstall our fuse. So we're gonna put our ECM back down with our two T40 Torx. I'm gonna clean up our wiring harness, tighten it up, trim those off, and we'll be finished. All right, we are all wrapped up and quite literally ready to rock and roll. We just have to put our fairing and gas tank back on, and like I said at the beginning, we do have videos to help you through that if you need it. Overall, this took me about 2 hours. Wasn't bad at all. Simple hand tools in your garage, you can knock it out in about that time depending on your level of mechanical aptitude. Now, if you have any more questions about any of the Kenwood product here, you can click on that info tab on your desktop or mobile device. That's gonna take you to the product detail page where you can read other writers' reviews and more specs about all of the Kenwood product. If you still have more questions, feel free to reach out to our customer service team. They would love to talk to you about what works best for you, your motorcycle, and your budget. I am Patrick. Thank you for watching. Now go work on those motorcycles.